Good morning, students. Welcome to our online class. This is your second period, and the subject is economics. Students, today we have recorded mode of class, and through this recorded mode class, today I am going to continue the same chapter, that is human capital formation, from book 2 Indian economic development. Students, in the previous class, yesterday, we have studied till what are the problems that are facing by India in human capital formation. What are the problems that are facing by our country India in human capital formation? Up to that topic we have completed. Now today in this class we are going to complete few more topics, and today our first topic is education as an essential element. Education as an essential element of human resource development. That means education is one of the important element, essential element of human resource development. Is it true or not? That we will study. Okay, students? Education is an essential element of human resource development. Now listen carefully, students. Education is an essential element of human resource development. It is true. It is true to say that education is an essential element of human resource development. Education implies the process of teaching, training and learning. Education implies the process of teaching, training and learning. Where will you get teaching? Where will you learn? In schools, colleges and universities. Similarly, education also improves knowledge and it develops certain skills. You should agree with this one. Education implies the process of teaching, training and learning. Where you get this learning? Where learning process takes place? Where teaching process takes place? In schools, colleges, universities. Education improves the knowledge and skills and develops certain skills. That is true. So I can say like this: education is the undercurrent of social change. That means education is the main tool to bring social change. Change in the society. So education is the undercurrent of social change and as well as economic change also. Education is the undercurrent of economic as well as social change. However, compared to when we compare to other countries, when we compare our country with other countries, when we compare our country with other countries of the world or in Asian continent, spread of education in India has not been encouraging. The spread of education in our country India is not at all encouraging when we compare with other Asian countries and rest of the countries in the world. That means the spread of education is very less in India when compared with other countries. The percentage is very less. This we need to think a lot. Even literacy rate in the country continues to be very low. The literacy rate is also very low in India when compared with the other Asian countries and other countries in the world. Literacy rate is very low. Now I am giving one literacy reading here. You please remember. You should remember this one. According to 2011 census, according to 2011 census, the literacy rate of India is what? 74.04. This is national literacy rate. Together, both females and males together. I am not saying separately, male separate, female separate. Here I am telling the literacy rate of India. The literacy rate of India, according to 2011 census, is 74.04% against 90 to 95% in other developed countries of the world. In other countries, the percentage of literacy rate is 90 to 95. 90 to 95 is the percentage of literacy rate in other countries of the world. And when we see our country, when we look into our country, India, the literacy rate is only 74.04%. That in 2011. If you go back the previous decades, it was very low. So here we need to think a lot. We need to spread education. We need to encourage education. Government should allot more money in the budget, government budget, for the spread of education. We need to think in this direction. Literacy rate 2001 is 74.04, which is fall too short when compared to the rest of the world countries, that is 90 to 95. Okay, now I'll tell you importance and objectives of education. What are the objectives of education? What are the objectives of education and what is the importance of education? Why education is important? Which objectives we will fulfill through education? Let us see. Now, the following are the important points that will highlight. What are points I'll tell you? The following are the important points that will highlight the importance and objectives of education. Number one, education always helps in what? Making the people as responsible citizens. Education always makes the people to act as responsible citizens. So that is the first point. Education produces responsible citizens. Education develops science and technology. Education helps in developing science and technology. Education facilitates use of natural and human resources. It facilitates use of natural and human resources of all regions of the country. I repeat, education facilitates the use of natural and human resources of all the regions of the country. That means education helps in a proper utilization of natural resources and human resources. Education always helps in expanding the mental horizon of the people. Education helps in enhancing, in developing the mental horizon, the thinking, the mental horizon of the people. It promotes cultural standards of the citizens. Education also promotes the cultural standards of the citizens. Finally, it helps in the development of human personality. Education helps in the development of human personality. So these are some of the importances and objectives of education. Once again I repeat, the following are the points that highlights the importance and the objects of education. First one, education always makes the people as responsible citizens. It helps in development of science and technology. It helps in proper utilization of natural resources and human resource. It expands the mental horizon of the people. It promotes the cultural standards of the citizens. And last one, it develops human personality. So these are the objectives and importance of education. Now let us move another topic, that is need for government intervention in education and health. Very nice question. It may be asked in the board examination. Why there is a need and necessity? Why there is a need and necessity? The intervention of government in the field of education and health. Why there is a need and necessity of the intervention of government in both education and health sectors? Simply because in education and health sector, these services should be provided to all the people in the country. All the citizens, all the people in the country should receive education and health services without any disparities, without any conditions. If you leave this health and education sector purely under private sector, then they will charge very high. They will charge very high to provide these facilities to the common people. Hence, common people are unable to access these two services. I repeat, there is a need and necessity of intervention of government in the field of education and health sector. Why? Because these two services, education and health services, benefits should be provided to all the people of the country irrespective of any conditions. They are necessary for everybody. And if these essential services are left in the hands of the private individuals, then they will charge very high while providing these services to the common people or all people. Few people may access and a majority of the people may not access the health and education facilities. They may charge very high. That's why these two services will not be within the reach of the common people. That's why there's a need and necessity of government intervention in providing these two services at affordable rate or free of services to all the people. That's why there's a need and necessity of government intervention in education and health sector, and there's also a necessary to allocate a sufficient budget to these two fields. Now see, need for government intervention in education and health. How? Need for government intervention in education and health arises primarily on account of the following facts. What is the fact? These sectors, education and health sectors, need huge investment. First, they require huge investment. Health sector, education sector needs huge investment for establishment of these facilities. Okay, with a high and fixed expenditure. To establish health facilities, to provide education facilities, huge investments are needed. First, okay. And when huge investments are needed, it could not be alone done by private sector. It has to be done by government sector. First point. Second point, it is difficult to expect the private investors. It is difficult to expect the private investors to invest in health and education unless they are allowed to recover their huge costs through high prices of their services. Suppose once the private sector people are investing their savings in the field of education and health, naturally they always expect what to recover huge costs through high prices of their services. When they spend more money in providing these two facilities, these two services, naturally they will try to charge more and more to get back, to recover their investment. In this connection, what will happen? The poor people, the common people, they are unable to access these two services at affordable price. People in a poor country like ours, people in a poor country like ours cannot afford high price for education and health. That's why there is a need and necessity for the government intervention in education and health sector. Accordingly, the services would remain beyond the reach of the most unless these are subsidized. Government has to subsidized or directly provided by the government. So unless education and health facilities either directly provided by the government or they have to provide this one at a subsidiary rate, then only they will be within the reach of the people. Otherwise, if we left these two sectors in the hands of the private people, they will invest, but they will charge very high cost to recover their investments. Now coming to growth of education sector in India. If you compare how the education sector was when compared with 1951 till date, so there is an improvement. There is an improvement in the field of education system in India when compared to the previous years, previous decades. Literacy rate was increased. The number of primary schools and secondary schools were increased. The number of schools and colleges were increased. But this improvement is less when we compare with other Asian countries or rest of the countries of the world. But one thing is sure, that growth of education sector in India, if you see, no doubt there is an improvement. There was a substantial improvement in the field of literacy rate, in the field of schools, in the field of colleges, in the field of universities, etc. etc. Let us see. Following observation shows the growth of education sector in India. Okay, now how can we see? See, expansion of general education. Here one table is given which shows the expansion of general education during the period of 5-year plans. Okay, here the number of primary schools and middle schools. In 1950-51, it were only 2.3 lakh. In 1950-51, the number of primary schools and middle schools only 2.23 lakhs. But in 2015-16, recently, they increased to 12.70 lakh. 12.70 lakh. Similarly, the secondary and senior secondary or higher secondary schools, in 1950-51, they were only 7.4 thousand. 7.4 thousand cities. But in 2015-16, it was 2.52 lakh. See the comparison, how much improvement is there. Similarly, colleges, in general colleges, in 50-51, there were only 578 colleges were there in India. Now today, here 39,071 colleges were there. Universities, including deemed universities, only 27 were there in 1950-51. Now the number is increased to 799. Now coming to the students, in a primary and middle school, the number of students were 19.15 lakh in 1950-51, 19.15 lakh. But today, 2015-16, they were 17 crore. Where is lakh and where is crore? Similarly, higher schools and secondary schools students, 15 lakh. They are increased to 3.2 crores now. Similarly, higher education, 3.6 lakh students were there. Now they were increased to 346 lakh. So what do you want to say? In all aspects, there was an increase in the education sector in our India from independence, since independence till date. Fine. Now, coming to literacy rate once again. In 1950-51, or I guess 1951, in 1951, the literacy rate of India was 18.33. Remember, students, 18.33 was the literacy rate of India. 18.33. And 2011, how it was? How much it was? 74.04. So if we compare the literacy rate also from 1950-51 to 2011, there is also a tremendous improvement. Now coming to elementary education. Elementary education covers students of class 1 to 8. Elementary means what? Students of class 1 to 8 will be taken into consideration. When you talk about elementary education, which classes of students will be taken into consideration? 1 to 8. Primary and middle, both. Primary and middle class. Here primary is 1 to 5, middle means 6 to 8. So the primary and middle class together is taken into consideration as and called as what? Elementary education. In the age group of 6 to 14 years. So the number of primary and middle schools have considerably increased. In 1950-51, the number was only 2.23 lakh. In 2015-16, they were improved to 12.70 lakh. However, low percentage of admissions of children in primary classes points to educational backwards in the country. The enrollment of children in primary schools is very less. When the enrollment of primary school children in the school is less, schools are less, that shows the backwardness of our country, India. Social and economic poverty is another principal cause, main cause for what? The low, enrollment of children in the schools, especially in rural areas. Poverty is also one of the reason that parents are not sending the children to schools. Now next one, secondary and senior secondary. If you see, in 1950-51, there were 7.4 thousand secondary and senior secondary schools were there, with a 15.0 lakh or 50 lakh students. But when compared with 2015-16, what happened? The secondary and senior secondary schools were increased to what? 2.52 lakhs, and the number of students also went up to 3.2 crores. That's a lot of improvement is there. In 1987-88, please mention here, I'm mentioning here, please underline. In 1987-88, I remember that is my class 10th year. In 1987-88, Navodaya Vidyalaya were established. So you will be asked, when this Navodaya Vidyalayas were established? They were established in India in 1987-88 to impart modern education of good standards of talented students. To impart modern education to the talented students of rural areas. Very good objective. Navodaya Vidyalayas were established in India in 1987-88 in order to impart modern education for good standards to talented students of rural areas. These schools providing both boarding and lodging facilities. The central government has established Kendriya Vidyalaya. Kendriya Vidyalayas are always comes under what? Central government. Kendriya Vidyalayas are comes under central government. So the central government has also established Kendriya Vidyalayas or central schools. We can say Kendriya Vidyalayas are also called central schools for the benefit of children of transferable employees. The CRPF children, military, railways, and other central government departments parents, they are always what? Transferring from one place to another place as per their jobs. So when they are transferring from one place to another, so where do they join their children all the time? So for that purpose, the central government established what? These central schools are Kendriya Vidyalayas. That's why in Kendriya Vidyalayas, what? The people who are getting more transfers will be given more preference. CRP people, military people, railway people, and other central government department people, defense people, okay. Whenever they are transferring, they'll make the children join in what? Kendriya Vidyalayas only. Easy. Currently, the number of central schools in the country is estimated about 1,128. 1,128 are central schools are there, against 931 in 2007, and the number of students in the schools are about 12.6 lakh. Okay. 3 Kendriya Vidyalayas, one at Kathmandu. Listen. 3 Kendriya Vidyalayas, one is at Kathmandu, one is at Moscow, and another is at what? Tehran, are also functioning. 3 central schools are also functioning abroad. One is Moscow, one is Tehran, and one is what? Kathmandu. CBSE schools. Now like that, higher education also. I told you, after independence, higher education also has shown convincing growth rate. As many as 719 universities are providing higher education in our country, India, today. Of these, there are 44 central universities, besides 40 deemed universities. The total number of colleges of general education in the country is what? 39,071. Already I gave the data to you. The number of students of all universities is 346 lakh in 2015-16. The University Grants Commission, UGC, underline this one, UGC, University Grants Commission, UGC, University Grants Commission regulates, controls and guides higher education system in India. regulates, guides the higher education system in India, that is UGC, University Grants Commission. Now, vocationalization of secondary education. Vocationalization of secondary education. Now, this concept has given more importance in what? This NEP, New Education Policy 2020. Vocationalization of secondary education. See, in February 1988, the central government launched a plan. In February 1988, the central government of India launched a plan to vocationalize secondary education. So, vocationalization of central education was started actually in 1988. Now, again, we are giving importance for that one. Earlier, we gave importance in what? Secondary level. But now we are giving in what? That lower classes level also. So, in February 1988, the central government launched a plan to vocationalize the secondary education. Under this plan, financial assistance is given to those schools who wants to start vocational courses at higher secondary, that is plus 2 level, class 11th and 12th. According to this plan of vocationalization of education, the central government is ready to give grants to all the schools who wanted to start vocational courses in their plus 1 plus 2 level. Also, efforts are underway to draw employment plans for those students who successfully complete these vocational courses. Those who are completing these vocational courses successfully after plus 1 plus 2, so government is also planning to provide them employment opportunities. By 2012-13, permission was granted to nearly 11,000 schools in the country to start vocational courses. About 10 lakh students are getting vocational education in these schools. How many schools? 11,000 schools. And how many students? 10 lakh students are getting admission in these schools to learn vocational courses along with the plus 1 plus 2. Vocational courses have been introduced in these areas of agriculture, trade and commerce, engineering, technology, health and medicine. So in these fields only we have introduced what? Vocational courses. Now similarly, technical, medical and agriculture education. How was technical, medical and this agricultural courses? Let us see. Since independence, the number of institutions imparting technical and professional education has increased significantly. That is the number of technical institutes and the number of that professional institutions are increased. Medical colleges were increased, polytechnics were increased, ITS were increased, IITs were increased. Yes. In 1951, there were only 43 diploma level polytechnical institutions. There were their number has significantly increased to 1,914. Earlier, 43 diploma polytechnical institutions are there. Now the number increased to 1,914. Similarly, there are 3,400 recognized engineering colleges offering degree level courses in different disciplines. The admission capacity of these courses is 15 lakh students per year. Okay. Presently, there are 289. Underline please, students. Presently, there are, according to 2015-16 I am telling. According to 2015-16 I am telling. Presently, there are 289 medical colleges in the country with an admission capacity of 32,815 students. 218 medical colleges according to 2015-16, and their capacity is 32,850 students for educating. The number of dental colleges is 282 with an admission capacity of 22,680. Many research centers have also been set up in the country. Indian Institute of Technology, IIT, Agricultural Research Institute, ARI, Indian Statistical Institute, National Physical Laboratory, National Chemical Laboratory, Institute of Economic Growth. All these national level institutes were also established in our country, India. Many agricultural universities have been set up in the country with a view to spread technical knowledge to rural areas. For example, for what? Community polytechnics have to be set up. Presently, as many as 617 community polytechnics have been established. Okay, now coming to rural education. How the rural education system was in our country, India. Rural areas have also witnessed a wide expansion of education. Unlike earlier, Nowadays, if you see, the rural education system also expanded. You can't blame that rural areas are very less in literacy. Nowadays, in rural areas also, the number of schools are there, literacy rate has increased. So, rural areas have also witnessed a wide expansion of education. National Rural Higher Education Council. National Rural Higher Education Council has been set up for the providing education in these areas. I repeat, National Rural Higher Education Council has been set up to provide education in the rural areas. Under this council, 14 rural educational institutions have been functioning. Children of scheduled caste and scheduled tribes get free education in all the states in India. Now, adult and female education. Adult education, female education, how the conditions were. In order to eradicate illiteracy among the adults, both male and female. Okay, adult education programs were also started in our country India through Rajiv Gandhi Shiksha Mission. Importantly, National Literacy Mission, NLM, National Literacy Mission was set up in 1988. Underline students, this is very, very important. National Literacy Mission was started in 1988, and since 1976, formal education program has been launched. It aims at providing meaningful education to youth of the age of 15 to 25 years. I mean, those who are not studied in their childhood, such people are providing adult education for both males and females through National Literacy Mission scheme and adult education scheme for the youth of 15 to 25 years. Night schools are run. After their working hours are over, in the evening hours, they'll go to some schools and they'll sit and they will get literacy. They'll learn how to read and write. In order to provide technical education to women, many women polytechnic colleges have been established in India. Women Education Council is a significant step to promote education among women. Now, total literacy campaign. What is that one? What is meant by total literacy campaign? See, National Literacy Mission, which was started in 1988, was launched to render everybody literate in the country. The main aim of National Literacy Mission in India is to make every person in India is a literate person. It was started in 1988. This program has now been recast as what? Sakshar Bharat. I mean, the National Literacy Mission only remodeled into, restructured into, recast into Sakshar Bharat with a central focus on female education. The main focus is on female education. The program covers all those in the age group of 15 years and above. It may be noted that there are 11 crore illiterates in the country between the age group of 15 to 25 years. 11 crore illiterate people are there between the age group of 15 to 25 years. So we need to impart education to them. Now, here last topic, small topic. Education is still a challenging proposition. Education is still a challenging proposition. See, focus on education has tremendous increase over time. It is encouraging to note that the nearly 96.5% of children are now school going or school goers. 96.5 children are going to school nowadays. But in the backdrop of the statistics, there is a bitter truth. The enrollment is more, but the backdrop, if you see, there is a bitter truth. Okay, despite the constitutional provisions for the free and compulsory education, despite the constitution says that 6 to 14 years children should be given free and compulsory education, the quality of education and the infrastructure continues to be disappointing. The quality of education and the infrastructure is not sufficient or disappointing. Administrative colonies compounds the problem further. A survey by the Child's Rights and You. A survey was done by Child Rights and You. CRY, cry. Child Rights and You, cry. CRY, cry. My dear children, listen carefully. CRY, capital letter. CRY, cry means what? Child Rights and You. Yes, a survey was done in India by CRY. Finds that children continue to be refused admission to schools because of the lack of transfer documents, birth registrations, and proof of registrations, etc. In some cases, parents of the school going children are compelled to pay fees. Such instances points to serious Bottleneck. I mean, bottleneck means here problems. Okay, in the education system of the country. This, along with the following facts and figures, makes education still a challenging proposition in India. See, I'll tell you some of the reasons why education becomes still a challenging proposition in India. Why education becomes still challenging for many people. Number one, large number of illiterates. Large number of illiterates, inadequate vocationalization, inadequate vocationalization, gender bias, low rural access level, privatization, low government expenditure on education. All these are some of the reasons for what? That education became a challenging proposition in India. I repeat, large number of illiterates are there in India. Inadequate vocationalization, gender bias, low rural access level, privatization, low government expenditure on education. All these are some of the reasons for what the education became a challenging proposition in our country, India. So, students, in this way, this chapter is over. In the coming chapter, I think unemployment. Okay, let me check. Unemployment is there. So, unemployment will start. Let me check. Poverty is over, rural development is over, human capital formation over. Now unemployment. Sorry, employment. Employment, infrastructure, sustainable development. 3 topics are there of this unit. Then we will go to last unit of this book. Then one more unit is there in what? That macroeconomics. Determinants of income and expenditure. Fine, we have to complete it by the end of November. So in the next period we will start with what? Employment. Fine. Okay, thank you friends. Take care.